Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models and Memories, episode 4, A New Paint, a show about nothing filmed in front of a live studio audience. And stay tuned till the very end to see a montage of models courtesy of the EOB Complete community. This is a show where I talk about my painting, wargaming, and modeling experiences from the week, and I end every single episode with a story. Now you might think to yourself, Jay, you live stream every night, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week, how could you possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I didn't get a ton of personal painting done, but I did finish on stream my 3 Malifaux biddies. These are Malifaux Arcanist Performer Minions Showgirls. And they turned out really, really nice. I painted all 3 of them up on stream, and I found that I painted the pink one first, and then I moved on from there, and I found that I actually improved on every single one. And I'm super, super happy with how they turned out. I haven't really painted anything exactly like these guys, but I think they really turned out great. And it means that I'm now 3 models closer to a full Malifaux army, which is awesome. I cannot wait to play a game of Malifaux. It looks like so much fun. I love 40K, I love Kill Team. I've been playing the spit out of it, but you know, variety is the spice of life, and what could possibly be spicier than a bunch of theater performers stealing magic from the world of Malifaux? Painting these Malifaux minis has been giving me a great challenge because they're in a much more realistic scale. With 40K, they make everything so that it's very easy to paint, so when you have like straps or buttons, they're very proud. They stick really far off the model, and that makes it super easy because if you dry brush, the bristles catch that object, or if you wash it, the paint flows right where it needs to. But with these models, they're built in a much more realistic way, and so I actually didn't use any washes on any of these models. Everything was applied with a brush, every value, every shadow, every shade, and so it really kind of forces you to interpret what's there and then really kind of paint it. Like this particular figure has kind of a sheer top that is barely distinguishable from the rest of the model, and I had to pick out where that area started and stopped. They all have super, super fine details like that. And it was actually really interesting to kind of treat those big wide open areas as a bit of a canvas instead of just, letting the paint run until you hit a detail and then you paint that new detail a different color. With my performers done, or with my showgirls done, that leaves me with 7 minus 3, 5 more models to paint. 4 more models to paint. That's not right. Did 8 come in a box? I still have to paint from the core box 3 Mechanical Doves and Cassandra Felton, my henchman, and Colette Dubois, my faction's my faction's master, the ringleader, you could say. And I'm gonna paint her dead last because I'm hoping to take all of the skills and experiences I learned painting the rest of the squad and put it all into her so that she is perfect. Also, Malifaux has such lovely cards. I love cards. I think Games Workshop needs to move away from pen and paper and into cards. I don't want a codex. I want just a 500 stack of cards. That's how I want to play a game of 40K. Doesn't that sound like a treat? When I was painting these ladies, the thing that really terrified me was painting the faces. I've never really had to paint women's faces before. I try to paint as many faces as I can just to get better at it because it's so hard. One of the really hard things about faces is our caveman brain is programmed to identify faces instantly, and it's really hard to recreate a face with paint. And so, even if you're off just a little bit, you're like, that eye is 0.5 centimeters lower than the right eye. It's instantaneous, but I think I actually did a really good job. And again, I improved on my ability to paint women's faces from my first model to my second model to my third model, which I think turned out phenomenal. But let's take a minute here to talk about faces, specifically women's faces, and more specifically, the Adeptus Sororitas Dogmata model that came out, I don't think this week, but last week. But I have seen it do the rounds on YouTube, and it has been getting savaged. And I think the criticism is fair, but I think it's kind of coming from the wrong place. We all know that Games Workshop is not phenomenal at painting faces. They have picked a style for themselves that lends itself really well to painting anything. Kind of your wash and then you bring it up with the highlights. And so everything has a lot of contrast, which looks good on the tabletop. Even, when the picture is blown up 50 times the size on your computer, you're like, that doesn't look quite right. The shadows are too heavy there. The eyebrow looks a little too broad. On the tabletop though, or in photographs and pictures, it looks great. But the thing it's really been grinding my gears, you could say, is people saying like, oh, that's not a woman's face, that's a man's face. Or how come that character looks like a man? And I think that is the wrong way to criticize a woman, a female miniature character's face. I don't think it's fair, but it's not very nice. Because miniature faces, it's not that, like, they don't default to being a man's face if they're not attractive enough to be a woman's face. I mean, that's kind of a double standard. Any face can be poorly sculpted or poorly painted, but male faces have gotten away with it this entire time by, being poorly sculpted or poorly painted or not perfectly painted. I mean, most faces across every mini in the world is painted poorly because faces are so difficult. Most people don't even put them on the model if they can help it. They'll put on helmeted heads, or they'll just paint them peach or brown and then just give it an Airgrax Earthshade wash and call it done. But what do you do if you have to make a character's face look feminine? I've seen some tutorials online and it seems like the trick to it really is just to go a little easier on the contrast. And it seems like that's really all it is. I found it pretty successful on these ladies. I definitely didn't push the contrast as far as I would have usually. Also, these faces are like 3 times smaller than a Space Marine face, which is what I'm used to painting. If you paint a man's face poorly, nobody panics. But it seems like if you paint a woman's face even slightly less than perfect, everybody loses their minds. And I'm not saying it's wrong to criticize a paint job, but there's a difference between criticizing the paint job and saying, oh, that's not a sister of battle, that's just a man in drag. Or why does that guy have tits? Like, it's not nice. If the painter or sculptor says it's a woman's face, it is a woman's face. Women can be ugly too. It's really hard to make a face look particularly masculine or feminine in microscopic scale, and how often does any painter or sculptor really pull it off perfectly? I think it's fair to criticize Games Workshop's paint style as being a little bit too aggressive with the contrast, but we don't have to resort to name calling of the model or the type of unit. We don't want to do anything that would make somebody feel sad about liking it or about having it. I think it's fair to criticize the paint job, but you don't have to bring this weird kind of mean language into it. Criticize the paint job, not the player. Those were just some thoughts I had while spending an entire week painting some ladies. But I'm gonna move these guys off to the side because in other news, I did something maybe a bit preemptive or a bit spontaneous. I bought some stuff. The podcast, Watching Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, did this to me. They opened that rabbit hole of Star Wars Legion and I dived right in. I got myself the core box with the Imperials and the Rebels, because I love me some Stormtroopers. And really this all started because this particular box was on sale. And I thought, oh, I love the Death Troopers. I love Rogue One. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. But they're not gonna quite look complete without Director Krennic in the middle. I mean, that really completes the picture. And you know what? Is the picture really complete without Stormtroopers? And if I don't have someone for the Stormtroopers to fight, then what's the point of any of this? So I had to get all of it. But you know what? I'm not even gonna be mad at myself, because if there's anything I love more than painting, modeling, and wargaming, it's Star Wars. Like, if I had to pick one to disappear off the face of the earth, I would pick wargaming. This whole YouTube channel would be gone. I would rather keep Star Wars than keep wargaming, and this is Star Wars wargaming. I mean, it's a match made in heaven. And I think this game is popular, but I would love it to get huge. Number one, to put Games Workshop in their place a little bit, and I wouldn't mind if they were a little hot under the collar. They had to worry about some competition. And I mean, it's Star Wars. What is a better tabletop game than Star Wars? Back in the day, I got hard into X-Wing. It was my favorite game of all time. I played it with my friends after I would get off of work, and then I would play that game until about 2 a.m, drive everybody home, and then report to work the next day. It's 9 o'clock. It was phenomenal, but I'm very excited to get into Legion. If you want to see more Legion content on the channel, the best way to support us is by becoming a member of our Patreon. Over there, you'll get access to some behind the scenes, including bloopers and song parodies. You get to take part in a poll to pick what models I paint live here on YouTube, and you'll get access to an exclusive extra long live stream every single week. So that was my week. I painted 3 ladies and I spent too much money. Now, getting to the story of this episode. At the end of each episode, I like to tell a story from my life, and I really like the association between objects and memories. As you can see behind me, my YouTube set is full of stuff, and each of these things is something I have carried with me throughout my life, and they all manifest a particular story. And the one I would like to talk about this week is this very weird plush toy. This plush toy is a character called Biollante from Godzilla. It is an evil plant monster that Godzilla fought one time, and I think it was actually a draw if you watch the movie. Now, the reason I have this is because I think it's so funny. Biollante is one of the grosser enemies that Godzilla fights, and I think it's hilarious to have it represented in this cutesy, wootsy little super soft, cuddly plush toy. And another reason why I love this so much is it reminds me of my dad. I probably got this when I was probably 13 or 14. I loved Godzilla, and my dad wanting to connect with me on my level. My dad drove me to a store in Chicago called Monster Island Toys. It was a pretty long drive, and when I was a kid, I didn't really appreciate it, but now as an adult, I totally appreciate that my dad doesn't give a crap about Godzilla, but on my birthday, he was willing to make that drive just to help connect with me on my level, and he bought me, after walking through the tiny, tiny store dedicated to Godzilla, he bought me this. This is what I picked out. Out of all of the cool Godzilla action figures and DVDs, I picked out this plush toy, and I love it dearly. I keep it in pristine condition. I don't bend the arms because they have wires and I don't want to wear them out. I think it is phenomenal. This monster not only is Biollante, which is a creature built out of the cells of Godzilla and the heart of a Japanese woman, but it is also the memory of my dad helping me to experience Godzilla on my birthday. This plush toy even reminds me of more experiences I had with my dad and with Godzilla. When I was even younger, my dad would take copper to a salvage yard, and whenever he would take a barrel, he would take me to the video store so that we could get a VHS copy of a Godzilla movie. And those were exciting days. Getting to watch Godzilla, those campy, amazing movies were just incredible. And I think that is actually how I saw Biollante for the first time and how I ended up getting it. It's one of my all-time favorite Godzilla monsters. And now that Godzilla is becoming more and more popular because they keep making these American movies like Godzilla vs. King Kong, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Kong, Skull Island, and Godzilla 2014, I see a lot of people being like, I love Godzilla. I really like that movie with Walter White in it. No, they are Godzilla movies and they're pretty good, but they're not the classic Japanese monster movies. And so if anyone is interested in diving into the Japanese side of Godzilla, I have some suggestions. If you want to watch the good Godzilla movies, I would suggest The Return of Godzilla from 1984, Godzilla vs. Destroya from 1995, Godzilla 2000 from 1999, and Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah Giant Monsters All Out Attack from 2001. I'm giving you the dates because often when these movies came to America, they'd get different titles or different things. It's easier if you look them up by the year. Those, I think, are the 4 best Japanese Godzilla movies. And if you can handle excessive camp, if you can handle the camp that would crush most people's souls, if you can handle that level of camp, I would suggest King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1962, Invasion of the Astro Monster from 1965, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from 1991, and Godzilla Final Wars from 2006. If you watch every single movie on that list, you will be a Godzilla fanatic. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Models and Memories Weekly. We are on episode 4, which means we are out of the original trilogy, and now we're into the prequels, so take that for whatever that means. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and now it's time for EOB Complete. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOBComplete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. some epic scale Lehman Russes by Just Make Stuff, a Tyranid tank by Decimation, a custom Warpsmith by Wild Bilbo, some Custodes by Thrumpert, some Primaris Eliminators by Huntron, an Assault Intercessor by Lost 247, a Primaris Intercessor by Guyman Hype, some Skaven by Dubsman, some Undead Riders by Aaron, some Snake Waifus by Evo Steel, a Necron Overlord with Resorb by OK Tabletop, some Primaris Reavers by Kilty O'Neill, a Lone Guardian by Brugataloda, some Train by Woe77, a Zoanthrope by Z, some Heavy Intercessors by Chris Carnage, some Malifaux Arachnid Swarms by Irritated Walrus, and a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle by Mateo. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like finishing a project, and we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.